Once again, Christian greetings to all our valued listeners and viewers throughout the whole world, even more particularly to all shepherds and believers, and most especially to our beloved brothers and sisters in the United States of America. Special greetings to our brethren in Colorado, our brethren in Georgia, in Texas, to our brethren in Kansas, in Fiji Island, in Mexico, in Spain, in Africa, in Kenya, Pakistan, in the United Kingdom, also to our brethren in Australia, and to the rest of the 144,000 living saints scattered abroad. Greetings. May the good Lord bless you, brothers and sisters. This is our episode number 32, the subject, the chronological order of events. And the subject is especially dedicated to our brethren, Brother Steve, Sister Pumin, and to all the rest of the brethren who are listening and viewing this program. Now, I would like to read to us our page 27, page 28, saying, a large portion of Christendom agree that we are living in the last days of this world's history. When Jesus was asked by his disciples for the signs of his return to earth again and of the end of the world, one of the many signs he gave was, when ye therefore shall see the abomination of desolation, spoken of by Daniel the prophet, stand in the holy place, whose readeth, let him understand. Matthew 24, verse 15. It is evident from the words of the Master that the book of Daniel contains information regarding the signs of the times and of the end of the world. That's our page 7 and 8. So, the book of Daniel, accordingly, contains the signs of the times and the end of the world. Now, I would like to read this statement. It says here, let's read this statement. It says, Signs of the Times, written by Alonso Jones. The restoration of the papacy is the one great event that stands between the world and the judgment. That restoration is now in progress. The elements are rife that will assure its accomplishment. War upon the saints is impending, and the time that the saints possess the kingdom is at the doors. So, Signs of the Times, 471, August 5, 1886. So, like, we begin. It says, the restoration of the papacy is the one great event that stands between the world and the judgment. That restoration is now in progress. The elements are rife that will assure its accomplishment. War upon the saints is impending, and the time that the saints possess the kingdom is at the doors. The statement in progress that is still in the days of Sister Juan, Alonso Jones, and Wagner. But how about this year, 2020? Is that power of the papacy had been completely restored? Or is it still in the process of restoration? I would like to read again the Great Controversy. (574), it says, in the movements now in progress in the United States to secure for the institutions and usages of the church the support of the state, Protestants are following in the steps of papists. Nay, more, they are opening the door for the papacy to regain in Protestant America the supremacy which she has lost in the old world. So, do not forget, brothers and sisters, that the sure word of prophecy plainly told us that restoration of the power of the papacy will be regained in the United States of America. There is no other place that had been protected in the Bible except in the United States of America. Now, here's another statement I would like to read. It says, the third angel presents a fearful warning against the worship of the beast and his image and the reception of his mark. So it says the third angel presents a fearful warning against the worship of the beast and his image and the reception of his mark. If you will read tract number 12, page 28, I would like to read. Tract number 12, page 28, it says, a full realization of the glorious reward that awaits mankind will even now compel men to shout for joy. And a like realization of the dreadful penalty that awaits all who fail to make God their refuge will cause them even now to weep and gnash their teeth. That all might realistically see these alternative prospects and be impelled thereby to repentance, the Lord has been at supreme pains not only to record a graphic description of the evil which, through the instrumentality of the beast, Satan has determined upon the whole world. It says, but also aforehand to make of a similar evil a perfect type of the image of the beast. So the voice of inspiration is plainly telling us that the Lord has been at supreme pains not only to record a graphic description of the evil, of that evil time, but it's through the instrumentality of the beast. What is the beast? System. To us our page 87. Through the medium of that system, Satan is determined to deceive the whole world. I remember the statement in tract number 12, page 50. It says, although our first question should be, what shall we do to avoid giving allegiance to the enemies of God, so as to be found worthy of a place in His kingdom when this evil time shall come? Tract number 12, page 50. The evil time mentioned here is the Great Tribulation in Revelation 7, verse 14. So the voice of inspiration is emphasizing that what shall we do to avoid giving allegiance to the enemies of God, so as to be found worthy of a place in His kingdom when this evil time shall come? I fully believe that the absolute answer is that to have our names recorded in the Lamb's Book of Life. For the Bible is very plain in Revelation 13, verse 8. So, let us read again the statement. Revelation 13, verse 8. And all, meaning without exemption, and all that dwell upon the earth shall worship Him whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. Remember, concerning Revelation 13, the sea and the earth mentioned here is not literal. It is symbolical. Therefore, Revelation 13 is even more addressed to the symbolical earth. As a matter of fact, even in Revelation 7, verse 3, the very first locality that had been mentioned is the earth. He says, saying, hurt not the earth. And the earth mentioned here is still the symbolical earth. The place by which trees naturally grow. Track number 8, page 24. As well as the woo trumpets. The last 3 woo trumpets still addressed to the symbolical earth. Let us read Revelation 8 verse 13. And I beheld and heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, woo, 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 to the inhabitants of the earth, by reason of the other voices of the trumpet of the 3 angels which are yet to sound. He says, woo, woo, woo to the inhabitants of the earth. And this is a trumpet study, which is a symbolical prophecy, as is stated, track number 5, page 26. Symbolical or literal, which? Only when this question is rightly answered will we have the key, the correct interpretation to unlock this great symbolical treasure house of truth. And in page 41, it says, for if every term is not symbolical, how shall we differentiate those which are from those which are not? And how shall we know by which to define the truth? Plainly shows that when we'll be studying the trumpet study, every term must be symbolical. So in the trumpet study, on the last 3 woo trumpets, the message is addressed to the symbolical earth. So the same, brothers and sisters, in the beast study, Revelation 13 verse 8 is addressed to the symbolical earth. And all that dwell upon the earth shall worship him, whose names are not written in the book of life of the Lamb slain from the foundation of the world. During the implementation of the mark of the beast system, the second fruits, the great multitude, which no man could number, the living saints, not all of them at that time were inscribed their names in the Lamb's book of life. For sure, all of us believe that the great multitude, which no man could number, in Revelation 7 verse 9, are taken from all nations. Revelation 7 verse 9. So, Revelation 13 verse 8, the implementation of the mark of the beast system. But it's all of them whose names are not found written in the Lamb's Book of Life can be referred only to the symbolical earth. Otherwise, brothers and sisters, there will be no great multitude living saints. Now, let us go back again on our reading. He says, the third angel presents a fearful warning against the worship of the beast and his image and the reception of his mark. Remember, according to the great controversy, (449), the most fearful threatening ever addressed to mortals is contained in the third angel's message. And that must be a terrible sin, which calls down the wrath of God unmingled with mercy. Men are not to be left in darkness concerning this important matter. The warning against this sin is to be given to the world before the visitation of God's judgment, that all may know why they are to be inflicted and have opportunity to escape them. The Great Controversy, page 449. Now let us read the statement again. It says, the third angel, it says, presents a fearful warning against the worship of the beast and his image and the reception of his mark. It must be evident to every person that this warning must relate to the time when men shall be required to worship the image on pain of death. That this work of the two-horned beast, so that is very plain, that this work of the two-horned beast, as recorded in chapter 13, has as yet been accomplished, but in part is certain. See verses 13 to 15. Hence, it is a great error to locate this proclamation in any passage. We have, as we trust, established the fact that these three proclamations are addressed to the last generation of men. So it is addressed to the last generation of men. Let's read again. concerning the last generation. Spiritual Gifts, Book 3, page 26. It says, Spiritual Gifts, Book 3, page 26. The woman is a symbol of the church, and the remnant of the church represents the Christians of the last generation of men. The last generation of men, and it says, the remnant whom God designs to fit for translation to heaven without seeing death. Spiritual Gifts, Book 3, page 26. So who are they? The last generation of men. They are those people by which God designs them to fit for translation to heaven without seeing death. Therefore, it could not be the generation of Sister White, the generation of B.T. Hotep, because they died. And without any doubts, as we proceed to our study, we are that people. The last generation, the third angel, according to our reading, is addressed to the people in the last generation. Here in Early Writings, page 143, it says, this remnant existing amid the signs and wonders that usher in the great and terrible day of the Lord is doubtless the remnant of the seed of the woman is spoken of in Revelation 12 verse 17, the last generation of the church on earth. Early Writings, page 143. So the last generation must be pointing to the church by which they are the very ones who will proclaim the great and dreadful day of the Lord. Now, I would like to read another statement here, brothers and sisters. It says here, the statement given by, so, the voice of inspiration, let's read again. It says, the rejection of the truth of God leaves men the captives of Satan and the subjects of his deception. 2 Thessalonians chapter 2 verse 9 to 12. The greater the light which men reject, the greater the power of deception and of darkness which will come upon them. The Advent message has been given in our own land, and by the mass rejected, and no greater, and indeed no other light can ever be given to those who have turned away from that. Then it says, the third angel gives us warning of the danger. The third angel gives us the warning of the danger which is now before us. The warning precedes the danger, that we by seasonable admonition may make our escape. And the only one that can escape are those people whose names are left written in the Lamb's Book of Life. So, we can easily understand that the message of the third angel is a last warning message to assure each one of us that we need to make a diligent effort to let our names be left written in the Lamb's Book of Life. Because that is the only protection. Because Jesus Christ cannot lie. He cannot deny himself. He promised that all the names left written in the Lamb's Book of Life, they are the only ones that Jesus Christ will protect them from the coming trouble. And that is why the voice of inspiration says that in 2TG number 7, it says, page 10 and 11, what a solemn time we have come to, brothers, sisters. Do you realize that if you do not now make an effort, it says, if you do not now make an effort to put your name in the book, it may be forever too late. And is it not better to have your name there, even if the trouble were 100 years in the future? Now is the time to act. Now is the day of salvation brought to you. Today, inspiration pleads, if you hear his voice, harden not your hearts. Only those who heed the revealed word of God will find deliverance and peace. None others will. 2TG number 7, pages 10 and page 11. Now, I would like to read to you again. And that statement, saying, it says, let's read again. It says, that is, if we can gather any idea of what the watchman means, the angel of chapter 10 is the seventh angel. What is your idea concerning the watchman? I think the only idea that I could give is found in 1TG, number 22, page 30. It says, aside from Ezekiel, God's mouthpiece, God delegates no other to be a watchman of the people. I remember the statement given by this for prophecy and testimonies for the church on volume 6. It says 407. I would like to read that. Volume 6, 407. Unless we understand the importance of the moments that are swiftly passing into eternity and make ready to stand in the great day of God, we shall be unfaithful stewards. Then it says, the watchman is to know the time of night. You see, it says, the watchman is to know the time of night. Everything is now clothed with a solemnity that all who believe the truth for this time should realize.
They should act in reference to the day of God. The judgments of God are about to fall upon the world, and we need to be preparing for that great day. Volume 6, page 407. The watchman need to know the time of the night. And that is illustrated, brothers and sisters, sunset. And that is illustrated the time when the irrevocable decision shall be pronounced in the heavenly sanctuary. Here in White House Recruiter, page 15. White House Recruiter, page 15. Finally, the night following the day can only represent the period after the gospel work is finished. After probation for man's salvation is closed, then as the light of the world, the word of God sinks beyond the horizon of the day, darkness covers the earth and gross darkness the people. Isaiah 60 verse 2. It is the time which finds the destiny of every being forever fixed. Then follows the Lord irrevocable finality. He that is unjust, let him be unjust still. And he which is filthy, let him be filthy still. And he that is righteous, let him be righteous still. And he that is holy, let him be holy still. You might read the entire Bible from Genesis to Revelation. There is no other occurrence recorded in the Bible by which at that time the destiny of everyone is forever fixed except on the Day of Atonement. The statement says in White House Recruiter, page 15, it is the time which finds the destiny of every being forever fixed. What time? At sunset. The commencement of the time of the night. Now let me read to you track number 15. And I can rest assured that there is no record in the Bible. There is no record in the Spirit of Prophecy. There is no record on the Shepherd's publications by which the destiny will be forever fixed except on the Day of Atonement. Now let us read track 15, page 50, page 28, and page 29. Track number 15, pages 28 and page 29. It says, in the typical atonement, everyone's destiny among the professed people of God was forever fixed. Those who complied with the demands of the law were left to live, and those who did not were cut off from among the people. Thus it must also be in the antitypical atonement. And in page 29 it says, so in the great day of final atonement, and investigative judgment, the judgment of the first two sittings. The time to separate the tares from the wheat, the bad fish from the good, from among both the dead and the living. The harvest. The only cases considered are those of the professed people of God, those who have at one time or another accepted the call and have the right to be clad in the wedding garment. Thus the question, if the judgment first begin at us, what shall the end be of them that obey not the gospel of God? 1 Peter 4 verse 17. The voice of inspiration, very plain, saying that first two sittings. But as we studied already, as far as the vision, the book of Daniel is thus concerned, there is only one judicial sitting that was shown by God to Daniel. But there are two judicial sittings. But concerning the second judicial sitting, the only thing that was shown by God to Daniel is the preparation. While the preparations of the second judicial sitting were being made. And we will explain that clearly. Now, I would like to continue reading the statement here. It says, that is, if we can gather any idea of what the watchman means, the angel of chapter 10 is the seventh angel. His message is the sum total of the three messages, and the last message of the seventh angel is the third angel's message. The last part of this last message is the promulgation of the doctrine of life and death. So, this message is life and death matter, brothers and sisters. So the seventh angel in Revelation chapter 10, his message is the sum total of the three angels' messages. Now, I would like to read again the General Conference Essential, page 39 and page 40. He says, in fact, the three angels' messages are applicable to the judgment for the dead only indirectly. For the judgment for the living is the all-important event. That is, the angel is not sent, it says, the angel is not sent particularly to explain what the judgment does to the dead, but what it is to do to the living. Then it says, so we see that the more we consider the subject, the more, it says, the more obvious becomes the truth that the third angel's message in its final phase is the judgment for the living, the harvest. Then it says, plainly then, the work of Elijah is to give light on the judgment for the living. General Conference Special, pages 39 and page 40. Now let us go back, brethren, to the statement. That the watchman need to know the time of the night. And in White House Recruiter, page 50, that symbolical night is the time when the destiny of each is forever fixed. But what is the destiny mentioned then? 1 Peter 4:17. The house of God. Not yet to the great multitude. Because in the great controversy, (485), it says, and the great controversy, let us read. Saying that the judgment, 480 rather, it says, let us read. So in the great day of final atonement, so this is final atonement, and it's easy to understand. Final, that is the last. So in the great day of final atonement and investigative judgment, the only cases considered are those of the professed people of God. The judgment of the wicked is a distinct and separate work and takes place at a later period. Judgment must begin at the house of God, and if it first begin at us, what shall the end be of them that obey not the gospel? Now, I would like to say directly that the house of God is pointing to the spiritual Israel, which is called the first fruits. Now, I would like to read White House Recruiter, page 23. It says here, that the servants of the 11th hour call, those who escape, who are not cut off. Then the quotation is Leviticus 23 verse 29. While the house of God is being judged. Now, brothers and sisters, Leviticus 23 verse 29 is pointing to the Day of Atonement. And if it pertains to the Day of Atonement, then the occurrence must be in the heavenly sanctuary, not on earth. Now let us read Leviticus 23 verse 29. Leviticus 23 verse 29. It says, let us read verse 28. And ye shall do no work in that same day, for it is a day of atonement, to make an atonement for you before the Lord your God. For whatsoever soul it be that shall not be afflicted in that same day, he shall be cut off from among his people. So Leviticus 23 verse 28 and 29 is pointing to the Day of Atonement. Brothers and sisters, so the word cut off there cannot be referred to the Day of Slaughtering, because the Day of Slaughtering takes place on the Passover week. Now let us read 2SR 216. It says here, uh, 2SR page 216. In observance of the Passover, the Lord commanded Israel to celebrate that occasion 7 days. You can read the entire paragraph, brothers and sisters, but the shepherd's rod is pointing to the time of the Day of Slaughtering, 7 days. Half hour silence. I'm just trying to prove, brothers and sisters, that Passover and Day of Atonement is not the same. Now, if the quotation is Leviticus 23:29, it cannot be the Passover week. That is the Day of Atonement. Now let us go back, brethren, to the book of Daniel. Now at this time, I would like to share to you, to focus our attention concerning the Sea of Glass. Concerning the Sea of Glass. Now, here on 2SR, let's read. 2SR page 100. 188 and 189. So I would like to read. It says, the Revelator, in a vision about 96 AD, was permitted to look into both apartments. A voice from heaven said to him, "Come up hither, and I will show thee things which must be hereafter." Then he saw a throne set, and one sat on the throne, and before the throne there was a sea of glass, like unto crystal. So, let us read again. It says, then he saw a throne set, and one sat on the throne, and before the throne there was a sea of glass like unto crystal. Now I would like to read 189. It says, throne is a set, and wherever God sits, there his throne is. Note that around and before the throne in the sanctuary is the sea of glass. At 2SR page 189, it says, note that around and before the throne in the sanctuary is the sea of glass. So around the throne is the sea of glass. Before the throne, it is the sea of glass. 2SR page 188 and 189. Now, here's another statement. In track number 3, page 80. Track number 3 on page 80. It says, I would like to read that statement. Where the sea of glass is. Track number 3. I would like to look at the, it says, last paragraph in page 18. Very plainly, then the ceremonial system reveals that from the time Christ sat on the right hand of God, Mark 16 verse 19, where the river of water of life is, to the time that He and the Father moved to the throne in the sanctuary, where the sea of glass is. It says, move to the throne in the sanctuary, where the sea of glass is. Daniel 7 verse 9 and 10, Revelation 4 6. He officiated in our behalf as a high priest in the holy place, Hebrews 9 verse 12, and that at the same time, conjointly with the Father of the eternal sovereign throne, the throne of God and of the Lamb, He ruled the sinless universe. Track number 3, page 18. So, in that reading, the sea of glass is found only in the sanctuary. The only place by which the sea of glass, where the sea of glass is only within the sanctuary. Now, that's the entire sanctuary is sea of glass. Brothers and sisters. Now, I would like to read track number 1 on page 9. It says here, track number 1, page 9. It says, the former, track number 1, page 9. The former, the one having the sea of glass before it, is also, according to John's view, in the most holy apartment of the heavenly sanctuary. For John saw before it 7 lamps of fire, a sanctuary fixture. As in vision, the apostle John was granted a view of the temple of God in heaven. He beheld there 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne. The Great Controversy, page 414. Where does the sea of glass found? It is in the most holy apartment of the heavenly sanctuary. But why is it that the 7 lamps or the candlestick is found in that most holy place? We know, brothers and sisters, that the golden candlestick is located in the holy place. Now let us read track number 5. track number 5 on let me review. Page 31. It says, the altar being in the holy apartment of the sanctuary at the sounding of the sixth trumpet proves that the trumpet sounded before the most holy apartment was opened for use. For had it been in use, the voice would necessarily have come from therein, where the throne is. Hence, the sounding of this trumpet had to take place before the door of the most holy was opened and the throne occupied. At track number 5, page 31. I think it is found also in the Great Controversy. 400 S3. The Great Controversy 414. It says, the holy places of the sanctuary in heaven are represented by the two apartments in the sanctuary on earth. As in vision of the Apostle John was granted a view of the temple of God in heaven, he beheld there 7 lamps of fire burning before the throne. Revelation 4 verse 5. He saw an angel having a golden censer, and there was given unto him much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all saints, and upon the golden altar, which was before the throne. Revelation 8 verse 3. Here the prophet was permitted to behold the first apartment of the sanctuary in heaven. So it says that is the first apartment of the sanctuary in heaven. And he saw there the 7 lamps of fire and the golden altar represented by the golden candlestick and the altar of incense in the sanctuary on earth. Again, the temple of God was opened, Revelation 11 verse 19, and he looked within the inner veil upon the Holy of Holies. Here he beheld the Ark of his Testament, represented by the sacred chest constructed by Moses to contain the law of God. The Great Controversy, page 414. So the golden altar, the golden candlestick with 7 lamps of fire, brothers and sisters, according to this reading, is located in the first apartment, and that is the holy place. But why is it that in that golden altar, in that golden candlestick, brothers and sisters, it is surrounded by the sea of glass, clear as crystal, plainly indicating that the sea of glass, which cometh from the most holy place, when the veil was lifted in October 22, 1844, the entire sanctuary became most holy. So that is the time that the entire sanctuary is surrounded by the sea of glass. Now let us read again 2SR on page 189. It says, note that around and before the throne in the sanctuary is the sea of glass. But according to 2SR, let us read again in page 215. Let us read. to SR 215. The silence in heaven for about half an hour cannot be the second coming of Christ, as some have thought, for afterward the angel with the golden censer and incense offered the prayers for the saints from the golden altar. The altar is in the holy place, just opposite the throne that is in the most holy. The two apartments were separated by a veil. In the day of atonement, the veil or door of the earthly tabernacle was opened and the high priest went in. But let it be remembered that the door veil was left open while the high priest officiated, thus the two apartments became one. For this reason, the congregation were not permitted in the holy place on that day as they were at other times. For the veil being lifted, the holy place also became most holy. Now, brothers and sisters, the shepherds had made it so plain that in October 22, 1844, when the veil was lifted, the door, the entrance to the holy place, was closed first. Then after the door, the entrance in the holy place was closed. The veil was lifted. Brothers and sisters, but both John the Beloved have been given the privilege to see what is going on in the heavenly sanctuary, even at the time when the actual occurrence did not as yet happen. Brothers and sisters, because it was in October 22, 1844. So, that is only in vision, not in actuality. Although, in the time of Sister White, in October 22, 1844, Sister White had been given the privilege to see by faith what is going on in the heavenly sanctuary. But the fact is that Sister White has no knowledge when the proceedings are already in progress. The only knowledge that was given by God to Sister White is the things that have been in the most holy place, which is the Ark of Covenant, by which the Ten Commandments were there, and the fourth commandment shines brighter than among the Ten Commandments to show that the Sabbath is a continual, and it is an everlasting covenant. And also the manna, indicating vegetarianism. And that is the only thing that was shown by God to Sister White. But concerning the judicial proceedings, the only knowledge that was given by God to Sister White is that the judgment of the dead commenced in October 22, 1844. And that is the only knowledge, brothers and sisters. Now, let us now focus to the statement in 2 SR 250. It was mentioned here, the half-hour silence. The silence in heaven for about half an hour, it says, cannot be the second coming of Christ, as some have thought. For afterwards, after this half-hour silence, the angel with the golden censer and incense offered the prayers for the saints from the golden altar. Now, the only half-hour silence which is common to all the Midians is the 7 days slaughtering. Brothers and sisters, let us analyze closely in this study. The 7 days slaughtering, I would like to put here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So this is the 7 days slaughtering. This is the general destruction of all the wicked Sabbath keepers. Both Sister White and B.T. Hotep plainly declare that. In Volume 3, Testimonies for the Church 267. And also in the writings of B.T. Hotep in Timely Greetings, I would like to read. I think 1TG. 1TG number number 51. B.T. Hotep also called it a general destruction. 1TG. Number 52, page 21. It says, I say, if they be left ignorant of it, will they not fall in the general destruction of the wicked, represented by the work of the 5 men bearing slaughter weapons? So, that slaughtering performed by the 5 men, it is called the general destruction of all the wicked, but all wicked Sabbath keepers. Or in other words, after that 7 days slaughtering, there will be no more wicked Sabbath keepers that are in existence. All of them were dead. Now, in the chronological order of events, brothers and sisters, before the slaughtering begins, God's people, the 144,000, will be delivered first by the voice of God. And they will be brought to Mount Zion, the literal Mount Zion. So, now, this is the question, brothers and sisters. When does the angel offer the prayers for the living saints? Is it during this time? Now, the event prior to this deliverance is called the little time of trouble. So we called here little time of trouble. This one is called the Jacob's trouble. 7 days. Jacob's trouble. Before the little time of trouble, we know that the first event is called the Great Tribulation. But sometimes in the Shepherd's Rod, the little time of trouble is also called Great Tribulation. Brothers and sisters. And this one is also called Great Time of Trouble. So in this study, the term is not the most important, but rather the event. Because this event, there are still saints to die. But from this time onwards, there will be no more saint to die. And that is one of the difference. But the question is that, when does the angel offer the prayers for the saints? For the living saints, 144,000. When? I would like to read Old Symbolic Code. Let us read Old Symbolic Code. Let's read the statement. It says here, where is this statement? But the Hotep says that concerning the time when the saints, to Symbolic Code number 12, page 8. To Symbolic Code number 12, page 8. So let us read. Why should they cry if there is no one to listen? Why should they cry if there is no one to listen? Question number 141. The word to the little flag, page 12, places in post-provisionary time the day and night cry of the saints, represented by the angel's cry to Jesus in Revelation 14, verse 14 and 15. Thus making the saints to cry day and night in a time when they were in the sight of a holy God without an intercessor. Speaking of this time, early writings, page 280-281, says the last tear for sinners had been shed, the last agonizing prayer offered. There seems to be a contradiction between a word to the little flag and the early writings. The one stating that after the close of provision, the saints will cry day and night to Jesus, and the other stating that in that fearful time, the saints were living in the sight of a holy God without an intercessor, thus making it appear that they could not cry to Christ, offer any more prayers for deliverance. Please explain. Answer. We are not to make it appear that Christ is no longer Christ after the close of provision, but simply that we cannot cry to Him to blot out our sins or the sins of others. In other words, the cry before provision is for sinners, whereas the one after is not. To Symbolic Code number 12, page 8. So, let us distinctly separate that cry in early writings 285, day and night for deliverance. That is not a cry to blot out their sins. Because accordingly, on the great controversy, it says here, the great controversy, page 618. So, I would like to read 618 and also 620. It says, But the little company who keep the commandments of God are resisting His supremacy. If He could blot them from the earth, His triumph would be complete. He says that holy angels are guarding them, and He infers that their sins had been pardoned. But He does not know that their cases had been decided in the sanctuary above. Now, it says here that Satan did not know that their cases had been decided in the sanctuary above. Now, here in page 621, it says, let us read. Had not Jacob previously repented of his sin in obtaining the birthright by fraud, God would not have heard his prayer and mercifully preserved his life. So in the time of trouble, if the people of God had unconfessed sins to appear before them while tortured with fear and anguish, they would be overwhelmed. Despair would cut off their faith, and they could not have confidence to plead with God for deliverance. But while they have a deep sense of their unworthiness, they have no cancelled wrongs to reveal. Their sins have gone beforehand to judgment and have been blotted out, and they cannot bring them to remembrance. So, the spirit of prophecy declared clearly that during that time, when the 144,000 living saints are crying day and night for deliverance, at that time, their sins were already blotted out. Now, before reading any passages in the Shepherd's Rod, I think, brothers and sisters, it is illogical. And not only illogical, but common sense will tell us that it is unreasonable that the angel will offer the prayers for the living saints after their sins are blotted out. So the prayers that will be offered by the angel, it must be before their sins were blotted out, not after their sins were blotted out. Whatever prayers to be offered after their sins were blotted out, according to the Shepherd's Rod, into symbolic code number 12, page 8, it is no longer for sins, but for deliverance. Now let us go back again to our reading. I would like to go back to the subject concerning the sea of glass. Now I would like to read 2SR page 173. 2SR page 173. It says, while some of the saints shall be laid to sleep in the time of the loud cry, it is made clear by Revelation 15:1, verse 1 and 2, that all who are alive after probation has closed and before the commencement of the pouring out of the plagues will be translated without tasting death. The plagues mentioned here, brethren, is not the 7 last plagues, which is literal. It is the 7 last plagues, which is the symbolical 7 last plagues, which is not common among the media. Now, I would like to read first concerning that point. Old symbolical. Let's read. It says here, 3 symbolic code 8 to 10, page 9. 3 symbolic code 8 to 10, page 9. So let us read the statement given by the Shepherd's Rod. It says here, what are the 7 last plagues? Please explain what are the 7 last plagues. Answer. The nature of the 7 last plagues is not yet revealed. The revelation is written in figurative speech. And therefore, the description of the plagues may be symbolical, as are the 7 seals and the 7 trumpets, etc. Look at how God divided the revelation to Sister White and B.T. Hotep. B.T. Hotep says that the 7 plagues is universal. Now, I would like to read 2SR. 2SR page 200. And that is the reason why it was multiplied by 10. 252 in 2SR. It says, the next number and event to deal with is the typical 40 days and 40 nights while it rained, in comparison with the antitypical, the destruction of the wicked in the time of the plagues, and to the second coming of Christ. That is the literal plagues. The ruin of the wicked being worldwide, we must multiply the type with a number signifying universal, so as to prove that the destruction shall include the 4 points of the compass. It has been previously proven that 10 is the only fitting number, therefore 40 times 10 equals 400, thus bringing the total of 449 days, or 1 1/4 years, 15 months, from the close of provision to the coming of Christ to take his sins. This fact will be proven from another angle in connection with another study. But the thing that I would like to emphasize that B.T. Hotep says that the 7 literal plagues are universal. But how about these plagues? On the great controversy, it says, the great controversy let me see if I can find that statement. Sister White says that these plagues are not universal. (629) These plagues are not universal. So what plagues mentioned here which is not universal? If B.T. Hotep and Sister White are inspired with the same spirit of inspiration, brothers and sisters, the only tenable conclusion is that it points out to the 7 symbolical plagues. That plagues are not universal. Why? Because it will be poured out only to the symbolical earth. But the 7 literal plagues, universal, because it will be poured out to the literal earth. And B.T. Hotep says that concerning the 7 symbolical plagues is not yet revealed. Let me read to you here in the statement in Answerer. Answerer number 2, page 43. Answerer number 2, page 43. The statement, it says, neither can they be the 7 angels with the 7 last plagues, for these angels are 7 in number, not 5. Furthermore, they do not have slaughter weapons in their hands, but vials. Still further, the plagues fall in Babylon, whereas the slaughter of Ezekiel 9 takes place only in Judah and Israel. And it says, Ezekiel 9, whether literal or figurative, effects a separation between the good and the bad, the tares and the wheat in the church, Judah and Israel, just as the plagues finally do in Babylon. And as the plagues are literal, so B.T. Hotep says that the 7 last plagues are literal. But in 3 Symbolical 8 to 10, page 9, B.T. Hotep says the 7 last plagues are symbolical. So there are 7 last plagues. The 7 last plagues which is symbolical, And that symbolical 7 last plagues must be poured out to the symbolical earth, but the 7 literal last plagues is to be poured out to, brothers and sisters, to the literal earth. Here in answerer number 3, let me read to you. Answerer number 3, page 43. No one should have difficulty in seeing this now, for all those to whom early writings primarily spoke are already dead, though the plagues are yet in the future. Furthermore, there is much more light to come. Furthermore, there is much more light to come concerning the truth of the 7 last plagues. And when it comes, we may again see that we have many lessons to learn and many to unlearn. Answerer number 3, page 43. B.T. Hodge says, furthermore, there is much more light to come concerning the truth of the 7 last plagues. And when it comes, we may again see that we have many lessons to learn and many to unlearn. Testimonies to Ministers, page 30. So, that is very plain, according to B.T. Hodge, that, brothers and sisters, there are still plenty of truths which is not yet unfolded in the days of B.T. Hodge concerning the 7 last plagues. Let me see this reading in 1 SP, or for prophecy, 1 SP. One SP 218. I would like to read 1 SP 218. The Lord next sent the dreadful plague of the locust. The king chose to receive the plagues rather than to submit to God. Without remorse, he sees his whole kingdom under the miracle of these dreadful judgments. The Lord then sent darkness upon Egypt. The people were not merely deprived of light, but the atmosphere was very oppressive, so that the breathing was difficult. Yet the Hebrews had a pure atmosphere and light in their dwellings. One more dreadful plague God brought upon Egypt, more severe than any before it. It was the king and his idolatrous priests who opposed to the last the request of Moses. The people desired that the Hebrews should be permitted to leave Egypt. Moses related to Pharaoh and to the people of Egypt, also to the Israelites, the nature and effect of the last plague. On that night, so terrible to the Egyptian and so glorious to the people of God, was the solemn ordinance of the Passover instituted. 1 SP page 218. And now, let us go back to our subject, brothers and sisters. So the voice of inspiration says that there is a symbolical 7 plagues. And that symbolical 7 plagues, it will be poured out during the little time of trouble. Let us read 1 SR. 1 SR page 36. So, let us read the statement. 1 SR page 36. It says here, as an illustration and comparison of the faithfulness and unity of the people at the time of trouble during the plagues. We quote early writings, page 282 and 283. I saw the saints leaving the cities and villages and associating together in companies So, at the time when the saints leave the cities and villages, that is the time that the plagues, the symbolical plagues, had been poured out. Now, I would like to read to you 1 TG number 12. 1 TG number 12. On page 24. 1 TG number 12, page 24. It is plain, moreover, that all the saints are called to get out of Babylon before the plagues of Revelation 16 fall upon her. If they are to be delivered from them, but how can Zion deliver herself if she does not hear the Lord's warnings to leave Babylon? It is therefore very urgent that this message reach her ears. Now, the Zion mentioned here, remember, Zion cannot be applied to Sunday keepers. The term Judah, Israel, Jerusalem, Zion, the shepherd says, no, it cannot be applied to the world. But it cannot be applied to the 144,000 living saints either. Because the 144,000 never come out from Babylon, but they came out from Egypt. So it must be pointing to the Sabbath keepers, brothers and sisters, including the literal Israel, by which they were categorized by the shepherd's rod, not defiled with women. I would like to read track number 3, page 72. It says, and the second, track number 3, page 72, and the second gives the second fruits, the great multitude from all nations, some of whom also may be undefiled with women, hidden churches. But in track number 9, it is very specific. Here in track number 9, let us read page 56. This class of saints must be those who have at one time been married to some unchristian mistress, a heathen church, and who consequently are not descendants of either Jacob or the Christian church. So there are to be 2 harvests, one from the church and one from the world. The record of the former mentions only Israelites, the 144,000, those not defiled with women, though it does not say that there may not be others, while the record of the latter, however, definitely embraces a great multitude from all nations, which must necessarily be both of undefiled and defiled ones, Jews and Gentiles. So the undefiled ones must be the Jews. But the shepherd says that it is pointing to Isaiah 27, right? Isaiah 27 on verse 6. Although that is not our subject, but just to clarify, brothers and sisters, here in Isaiah 27 verse 6, he shall cause them that come of Jacob to take root. Israel shall blossom and bud and fill the face of the world with truth. In 11 symbolical, number 7, page 18, it says, 11 symbolical, those that come of Jacob will take root. It implies that not all are coming, but those that do come will take root. The others will die. Those that take root are of Jacob. We all know that the scriptures say that the 144,000 are all of Jacob, for they are Israelites. The verse we are now studying says that those that come of Jacob shall take root, and Israel shall blossom and grow and fill the face of the world with fruit. These words are so plain that they do not need interpretation. Using the analogy that an apple tree bears apples and not plums or something else, we may draw the lesson that the Israelites that take root, the 144,000, will bring forth converts to Israel. These converts will be Israelites either by birth or by being grafted in, as Paul describes in Romans chapter 11. 11 symbolic code number 7, page 18. But to make it clearer, of course, if the Jacobites are Sabbath keepers, then those, the fruit must be Sabbath keepers and the root must be Sabbath keepers. But they are the constituent of the great multitude, the second fruits, which is undefiled, not defiled with women. Now, the important part in this study, brothers and sisters, is that concerning that statement in 2SR, let us go back again to the reading. In 2SR, page 173, it says, while some of the saints shall be laid to sleep in the time of the loud cry, it is made clear by Revelation 15, 1 and 2, that all who are alive after probation has closed, and before the commencement of the pouring out of the plagues, will be translated without tasting death. Now, if the plagues mentioned there, let us go to, let us illustrate the diagram. If the plagues mentioned there is the literal plagues for 100 days, literal plagues. This is the literal plagues. And then the second visible coming of Jesus Christ. Are we saying, brothers and sisters, that that is the time by which the 144,000 had been granted the eternal life, the reward? Then the parable would be on gross mistake. Because Daniel 12:2 had been resurrected, Ezekiel 37. Resurrection, when the saints will be resurrected, immortality was granted. So the 144,000 living saints, brothers and sisters, immortality must be granted to them prior to the time when the saints are resurrected. Now let us continue reading. And this reading plainly indicating that the 144,000, they were standing on the sea of glass, it says. Let us read the statement. Revelation 15, verse 1 and 2. And I saw another sign in heaven, great and marvelous, 7 angels having the 7 last plagues, for in them is filled up the wrath of God. And I saw as it were a sea of glass, mingled with fire, and them that had gotten the victory over the beast and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. The sea of glass is a symbol of life eternal, explained in another chapter. Inasmuch as all who had gotten the victory stand on the sea, it denotes that they have passed from death to life, and their destination now is God, New Jerusalem. So what is the indication when the saints are standing on the sea of glass? It says, brothers and sisters, they have passed from death to life, meaning eternal life was granted to them. Now, let us go back again to the statement in track number 15, page 18 and 19. Track number 15, page 18 and page 19. Let's read again the statement. Although the proceedings of the first two sessions are somewhat different, they are in all other respects similar. The third, however, is entirely unlike the first two. The differences are seen in that before the half-hour silence occurs, there is at the throne a sea of glass like unto a crystal. I would like to read again. The difference are seen in that before the half-hour silence occurs, there is at the throne a sea of glass like unto a crystal, Revelation 4 verse 6, and no one stands on it. But after the half-hour silence passes away, the scene changes. The sea of glass is mingled with fire. When does the sea of glass, which is clear as crystal, changes? After the half-hour silence, immediately after the half-hour silence, it says the scene changes. The sea of glass, which is clear as crystal, it is already mingled with fire. Although it remains, the sea of glass remains clear as crystal, but something added unto it. It is already mingled with fire. And them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. Revelation 15, verse 2. Having the harps of God. Do you remember that verb, having? Let me read to you. Track number 5. Page 60. It says, as Christ is the one who secures Satan's captivity, thereby ushering in the millennium, he alone can be fittingly symbolized by the angel, having the key of the bottomless pit, and by the star to whom the key was given. And as the giving of a thing to any certain one must precede the having of it, by that one the verbs given and having point, of course, to two different times. So this reading, brothers and sisters, we can easily understand that the harps had been given to them prior to the half-hour silence, and then after the half-hour silence, the 144,000 living saints having the harps of God. But the question is that, does this half-hour silence is the general destruction of all the wicked Sabbath keepers? Now this is the question. If, I would like to read the statement in Desire of Ages. Page 77. It says, all the ceremonies of the feast were types of the work of Christ. Desire of Ages, page 77. In, I think, track number 3. Track number 3, page 72. just as the spear prophecy declares that the whole system of types and symbols was a compacted prophecy of the gospel. A presentation in which were bound up the promises of redemption. The Acts of the Apostles, page 14. Just so the plan of salvation is unfolded not only in the testimonies of the prophets and in the parables of Christ, but also in the types and symbols of the earthly sanctuary. Tract number 3, page 72. Now, here's another statement that I would like to read, brothers and sisters. Page 13 in tract number 3. Tract number 3, page 13. Since earthly beings themselves, having never been in heaven, are naturally strangers to heaven's realities, 1 Corinthians chapter 2, verse 9, then in order for God to make heavenly truth known unto them, He must reveal it by means of earthly realities with which they are familiar. Hence, through the sanctuary work on earth is seen the sanctuary work in heaven. Hebrews chapter 9, verses 1 to 9. Now, let me ask all faithful Davidians, what feast by which the high priest offered prayers for the congregation? There is no other. That is on the Day of Atonement. Now, brothers and sisters, the statement given by the shepherd's rod on 2 Symbolic Wood number 12, page 8, that the offering of prayers after the sins were blotted out is no longer for blotting out of sins. That prayer is only for the deliverance. But how about the prayer offered by the angel? Is it for deliverance? So we need to study closely, brothers and sisters. When does the angel offer the prayers? After the half-hour silence. Now let us read again. 2SR page 215. It says, 2SR 215, the silence in heaven for about half an hour cannot be the second coming of Christ, as some have thought. For afterward, the angel, so after the half-hour silence, the angel with the golden censer and incense offered the prayers for the saints from the golden altar. Now, brothers and sisters, what happened after the half-hour silence? In tract 1580, the scene changes. The scene changes. The sea of glass, which is clear as crystal, it is already mingled with fire. But, brothers and sisters, in the book of Daniel, it is called fiery stream. That is very plain in the shepherd's rod, right? Daniel called it fiery stream. Now let us read the statement given by the shepherd's rod, brothers and sisters. So let us read here in tract number 15. On page 12, the comparison. Number 3, a fiery stream. Daniel 7 verse 10. But in number 3, in John's vision, it is sea of glass mingled with fire. So in the book of Daniel, it is called fiery stream. But in the book of Revelation, it is mingled with fire. Now let us read again the statement in track number 15, page 19. It says, in other words, at the first judicial sitting, there is no one standing on the sea of glass, and the sea itself is like unto crystal. That is the first judicial sitting. The first judicial sitting, brothers and sisters, accordingly, the sea is like unto a crystal, and there is no saint standing on it. While at the second sitting, the sea appears like unto a fiery stream, and the saints stand on it. What does it mean when the saints is standing on the sea of glass? They pass from death to life. Now let us read again. 2SR page 173. 2SR page 173. It says, in as much, 2SR 173, in as much as all who have gotten the victory stand on the sea, it denotes that they have passed from death to life, and their destination now is God's new Jerusalem. That is synonymous to the statement I would like to read to you in Symbolical. 12 Symbolical. Number 2, page 11. 12 Symbolical, number 2, page 11. It says, but the 144,000, 12 Symbolic Code, number 2, page 11. But the 144,000 are not sealed with a promise of the resurrection. They are sealed for some other purpose. They are sealed for protection from the hurting of the winds. That shows that the 144,000 are not sealed for the resurrection day, but for protection from being harmed by everybody and everything. They are alive at the time they are sealed, and the sealing enables them to live on. And since the message that is to seal the 144,000 is here, we believe that we are now living in the period when God is going to seal first the 144,000, and when they are sealed, their destination is God, New Jerusalem, not the grave and the resurrection. The same with the statement in 2SR 173. That when they are standing on the sea of glass, mingled with fire or fiery stream, indicates that they pass from death to life, and their destination is God, New Jerusalem. Brothers and sisters, when does the 144,000 stand on the sea of glass? So that is the question. It must be on the second sitting, because the statement in track number 15, page 19, on the first sitting, no one is standing on the sea of glass. And on the first judicial sitting, the sea of glass is like unto a crystal. But on the second judicial sitting, the sea of glass becomes a fiery stream. Track number 15, page 19. Now, let us go back again to track number 15. Brothers and sisters, on page 13, it says, both seers distinctly declare that the events which they saw was the judgment. The difference between the two scenes is that Daniel was led to look into the sanctuary while the preparations were being made for the judgment to convene. Whereas John was led to look into the sanctuary after the judgment had been set up. In fact, John not only saw the judgment in progress, but he saw the whole proceeding from start to finish. And we explained it several times, brothers and sisters, that the only thing that was shown by God to Daniel is the first judicial sitting. But he made mention of it twice. God showed only to Daniel first judicial session, but he made mention of it twice. But since we focus our attention to the judicial sitting first, what is the judicial sitting? Let us read again track number 15. Track number 15. On page 29, it says, so in the great day of final atonement and investigative judgment, the judgment of the first two sittings, the time to separate the tares from the wheat. Now, I would no longer elaborate that portion, brothers and sisters. Just to say that when it says judicial sittings, that is directly applied to the proceedings in the holy place, because that is separation of the tares from the wheat, blotting out of names. It is not in the most holy place, because the most holy place is only for blotting out of sins and granting of rewards. Let us read 2SR page 189. It says, during Christ's ministration in the holiest of all, which is a throne of judgment, of blotting out sins and granting of rewards. So, the proceedings in the most holy place is blotting out of sins and granting of rewards. But that is pertaining only to the righteous, because only the righteous, by which their sins are to be blotted out. The wicked, their sins will never be blotted out, but rather their names will be blotted out. So, brothers and sisters, to repeat again, Daniel, God showed only him one judicial session. And the statement judicial session is more directly applied to the most holy place. God showed only to Daniel one judicial sitting, and judicial sitting is directly applied to the proceedings in the holy place. But Daniel made mention of it twice, the judicial session and the judicial sitting. Now, in the judicial session, I would like to read first track number 15 on page let's read track number 15 on page 15. It says, the student of advancing truth will also note that Daniel refers to but one judicial session, although he does make mention of the judgment twice, first in verse 10 of chapter 7 and second in verse 22. Now let us go to Daniel 7 verse 10 to prove that judicial session is applied only to the most holy place. Now let us read Daniel 7 verse 10. It says, Daniel 7 verse 10, a fiery stream issued and came forth from before him. Thousands ministered unto him, and 10,000 times 10,000 stood before him. The judgment was set, and the books were opened. When does the sea of glass become fiery stream? Brothers and sisters, when does? In the second judicial sitting. Now let us read track 15. Page 19. It says, in other words, at the first judicial sitting, there is no one standing on the sea of glass, and the sea itself is like unto crystal, while at the second sitting, the sea appears like unto a fiery stream, and the saints stand on it. So when does, brothers and sisters, the sea of glass become fiery stream? At the second judicial sitting. So, we will show to you, although we will continue this in our next episode. October 22, 1844. So I would like to this is most holy place. Then also the same period of time, October 22, 1844. This is holy place. And blotting out of names that pertains to the dead. So, the second sitting must be to the living. Now, brothers and sisters, we already explained that the first sitting in the holy place ended on April 1, 2020. Gregorian calendar. In Bible calendar, it is October 10, 2021. We are now in the second judicial sitting in the holy place. And it will end this coming March 27, 2021 or October 10, 2022. It is already the judicial sitting among the living. What is the judicial sitting? Track 15, page 29. To separate the tares from the wheat, blotting out of names. So the word sitting is blotting out of names. And also in track number 5, we can prove that the sitting is pointing to the blotting out of names. But here it is called judicial session. Judicial session, brothers and sisters. Now, this is called the first judicial session that pertains to the dead. Now, brothers and sisters, when does, from October 22, 1844, the sea of glass is clear as crystal. As crystal. Clear as crystal, sea of glass. But when does the sea of glass changes? When does the sea of glass changes? It says, at the second judicial sitting. Therefore, the sea of glass cannot be in the holy place. But the description is that when the proceedings in the holy place is already the second judicial sitting, the sea of glass in the most holy place changes, become mingled with fire or fiery stream. What does it mean? The preparations were being made, brothers and sisters, so that when the names of the 144,000 that had been left in the Lamb's Book of Life on March 27, 2021, when Jesus Christ will enter to the most holy place, brothers and sisters, bringing their names, at that time, the sea of glass is mingled with fire, fiery stream, and that is indicating, brothers and sisters, that the saints is passed from death to life, my dear brothers and sisters. We will continue that subject on our next episode. And to repeat again, brothers and sisters, let us focus our attention to that very important event when the saints are standing on the sea of glass. Who are they? Those who overcome the beast, who overcome the image, who overcome the number of his name, and who overcome his mark. These four, brothers and sisters, is pointing to the entire system employed by the devil. The entire system, represented by the beast, represented by the image, represented by the mark, represented by the number of his name. And the term overcome meaning they were enlightened. And it was completely unfolded unto them. Completely unmasked the deception of the devil. Therefore, they had been able to escape such deception. We will continue this subject, brothers and sisters, but I would like to quote the last quotation in TM page 445. It says, those who overcome the flesh, the world, and the devil will be the favored ones who shall receive the seal of the living God. TM page 445. Those that overcome the world, overcome the flesh and the devil, will be the favored one who shall receive the seal of the living God. Therefore, the 144,000 living saints, before they could receive the seal of the living God, first they need to overcome the world. Then they need to overcome the flesh. And then the last one to overcome is the devil. But the shepherdson says, when it pertains to the devil, it pertains to these mediums that he employed to deceive God's people. The beast, the image, the mark, and the number of his name. Thank you very much for listening and viewing this program. May the good Lord bless you and have a beautiful, wonderful evening.